Welcome back guys, today we are going to see, had if Werewolf Bella imprinted on Edward Cullen. Before that, 50% of our viewers haven't subscribed our chan. Nell yet, so do it now to stay updated for such videos. So let's back on story. I'm a werewolf, or, if you want to get technical, a shapeshifter. My brother and dad encouraged me to become alpha, being firstborn. When I was 15, I began phasing, and Sam, then the alpha, even encouraged me to become alpha. Eventually I gave in. I am currently 17 and the alpha of my pack. I go to the high school in Forks because my dad insists I go to high school over there to get a better education. The winds howling were chilling me to my bones. The night's music was enticing, lulling me to sleep. Bella, stay up, only a few more hours. My subconscious whispered. Growling filled the air. Paul's excitement lit up. Bella, intrusion in the south by the border. Smells like vamps. Leah thought. I'll be right there. Paul, get Jacob, Sam and Quill quickly. I thought. Paul's piercing howl filled the night as we ran toward the border. Sam's voice entered my head. Wait, slow down, I think that's the Cullens. Sam thought. We were nearing the border. 7 figures came into view. The man in front was blonde, his eyes gold just like the stories of the cold ones. No, you remember. Paul's annoying voice filled my head. Quiet, I thought. The vampires stopped in front of the border, their bodies rigid and giving off their horrible odor. We stopped a few inches from the border and started walking next to it, tilting our heads toward them and growling. We wished to speak to the alpha. The blonde said, nodding my head toward Jacob as a sign of, keep the fort down, and leapt to the tree farthest to my left. I phased. Dean untied my shorts and tank top, then put them on. I walked from the tree when a wind blew my way, carrying the greatest smelling scent I ever smelled. I was almost tempted to track it down. I kept focused on my goal, noticing all the nocturnal animals. I came up to the group. All 7 eyes had shifted from the pack to me. I paid no attention to them. My main focus was the leader. I nodded my head to Jacob, telling him to back down. Hello, I'm the alpha of this pack. Hello, my name is Carlisle. This is my family. We were just checking to see if the pack was here and to make sure the treaty was still intact. Carlisle said, yes, the treaty is very much intact. The same rules will still apply. I responded, how many new members of your family have joined? None. We've been at this lifestyle for quite a while. He responded, then the treaty is, indeed, intact. So if that was all you came for, then it's all taken care of. I said. I turned back, repeating my promise in my head. Bella, stay up, only a few more hours. I went toward the tree. Before reaching it I glanced back. One vampire was looking at me, his yellow eyes imprinting an image in my mind. I really assessed him then. He was beautiful, but that didn't matter. What mattered was this feeling tying me to him. Chains were tying me to him, binding me to him. No, not a cold one, not a vampire. No, this cannot happen, not him or any other of his kind. I was freaking out on the inside, but my facial expression remained the same as before. I quickly got dressed and heard leaves crunching as the vamp ran back to their home. The chains begging me to follow him. I phased. Jacob, you're in command. I'm beat, I need to hit the hay. Okay. Jacob thought. I ran home and climbed through the window. Avoiding Dad completely, not wanting to tell him what happened. Knowing that he would be able to tell. I just imprinted. This thought plagued me through the night. The horror of the imprint, my imprint, plaguing me in the night, his eyes haunting me. 13 days it continued. On the 14th day I woke up sometime after 7 a.m. with Jake next to me, trying to wake me up. What? I eventually yelled. Are you okay? You're usually up at the crack of dawn, no matter what time you go to sleep. His face was worried, but marred with suspicion too. I'm fine. I just haven't been sleeping well. I lied through my teeth. He would know too since he was sleeping next door to me. He slowly backed out of the room, watching me. I took a shower and got dressed, waiting for Dad to come in and scream, you imprinted on a vampire. Though no one came, I walked into the kitchen and grabbed a bowl and some cereal. Hey Bella, how are you this fine morning? Dad asked. Oh, fine. I haven't been sleeping well. Dad raised an eyebrow as if to say, really, you're going to lie to me? Okay Bella, what's wrong? Failing class. Have a bad report grade. Do you need help any subject? Because you know I could find someone to help yo. I stopped him mid-rant. I'm fine. I'm not failing or anything. I just haven't been sleeping well. He narrows his eyes and takes in my stance. What? I said. There's something different about you. Dad said. There's nothing different about me. Anyway, I got to get to school. I grab my backpack of the floor and head to my truck. I got to school 5 minutes late, my truck squeaking the whole way. I get out of my truck and rush to my first class. Math. I rush into class, making Mr. Brown stop and scowl at me. Isabella, since you insist on being late, dentition. I wanted tea. Oh, stick my tongue out at him and say, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown. I was just trying to protect you and your wife from being killed by vampires. Sorry I didn't have time to sleep. Every day I had been skipping school right before the second to last period, even going as far as to skip lunch. Dad has been wondering why I have been coming home early, though he hasn't confronted me about it yet. Every day, I have been thinking about my imprint. Some days I swear that the cables are calling me to follow him, pulling tighter around me, trying to bring me to him. So this may also have influenced my decision to skip school, just a tiny bit. Or maybe completely. Regardless of this, I'm trying to stay after lunch or at least get to lunch. Though I try act as if everything is okay, guilt has been eating me up. Although I know my imprint is a vampire, I want to find him to protect him from the world. Even though that sounds absurd. But that's not only the reason. The pack has been wandering in my mind, trying to figure out why I'm acting so weird. The shame of imprinting on a vampire has been weighing on my shoulders. Every day I wonder if he'll come by to visit. Sometimes I even dream of it. I made it to lunch. I went through the lunch line picking at what they had at the counter. That's when the pull came. The cables were trying to suffocate me while I was trying to eat. My heart started to beat rapidly and I started to run out of the cafeteria. Another trick of the mind and a numbing pain filled me. I ran across the room towards the door. 4 people came out of the door before I got to it. I kept running. Just as the door opened, I reached it and ran straight into someone. They caught me by my arms and the chains began to lessen their grip. I looked, questioning why the grip had loose end, and was met with my imprint staring at me. I backed up with my hands coming up reflexively. Are you all right? His voice was sweet and made want to hug him. Though I resisted, backing up trying to get away from him. I'm fine. I stammered out. I had to get away now. Are you sure? I looked behind me, noticing the people around me. I began to have a small panic attack. Breathing in the air, I smelled the sweet scent, though not as powerful before. Then I really started to have a panic attack. The people around me weren't people, they were vampires. Even worse, they were the Cullens. My Ion was getting blurry and I was feeling dizzy. That's when the world went black. We had just moved to Forks, Washington after staying in Alaska for 5 years. My family seemed excited to be coming back home, seeing as this is where they could mostly pretend to be human. Mostly Rosalie though, because Carlisle had permitted her to pretend to be a sophomore, even though we, as in the rest of my family, were going to be juniors, excluding Emmett since he was following Rosalie. Being vampires, it would be easy to try and blend in, but she wanted to try something new. Though when we first arrived back, we smelled the familiar scent of werewolf, probably checking to see if we were back. Though it's hard to believe that they were still around after 70 or so odd years. Carlisle guessed this wasn't the first time they checked around the house and that they would probably come back soon. Carlisle suggested we just meet them head on to talk about the treaty. He insisted that if we went as a family, why wouldn't think that we were hiding anything from them. Besides our powers, of course. Edward, Carlisle thought, I want you to keep an ear open to new on the pack. I knew Carlisle didn't hold ill feelings for the wolves. He was just being protective over the family, knowing that the wolves have killed vampires before. I nodded slightly to Carlisle, signaling that I would. It's time to go, everyone, Carlisle said. Everyone calmly walked to the door, not really bothered by what we were about to do. We ran to the border, smelling a wolf immediately more downward because the winds were becoming fierce. How soon do you think till she'll crash? 2 voices entered my head, then both pack wolves. I wouldn't bet over an hour. She's been up studying all night yesterday and the day before, the other voice answered. Another voice entered my head, do you smell that? Leah, alert Bella. The first voice began to talk to Bella. As the others growled menacingly. Bella, intrusion in the south by the border. Smells like vamps, Leah thought. I'll be right there. Paul get Jacob, Sam and Quill quickly, Bella thought. They caught wind of us. We waited few minutes and a large pack of wolves came up to the border. They began to pace on the border, cocking their heads and growling at us. I didn't pay much attention to their thoughts because on that they knew who were and that we didn't mean any harm. Carlisle spoke. We wished to speak to the alpha. A gray wolf went toward a tree nodding at another wolf. 5 minutes later a beautiful brunette walked out. Hello, I'm the alpha of this pack. Her voice was soft and sweet. It enticed me. Hello, my name is Carlisle. This is my family. We were just checking to see if the pack was here and to make sure the treaty was still intact. Carlisle said. Yes, the treaty is very much intact. The same rules will still apply. She responded. How many new members of your family have joined? None. We've been at this lifestyle for quite a while. He responded. Then the treaty is, indeed, intact. So if that was all you came for, then it's all taken care of. She said. She walked back from the tree she previously came as my family ran back home, but my eyes followed her. She turned back around looking straight at me and her eyes filled with panic but her face remained calm as she turned back around to the tree. Edward, come on. We have school tomorrow. Alice said excitedly. I turned around and head back to my family. I took my time though after I was out of sight from the wolves. I hunted right before I came home. I ran home and entered the house tea. Find Emmett and Alice in the middle of a chess game, Carlisle debating with Esme about politics, and Rosalie and Jasper watching an inaccurate documentary on history in Canada. I settled down on the piano thinking about the brown panicked eyes and found myself surprised with the urge to compose. Though the eyes were beautiful, I wondered why they were panicked. I spent the next 2 weeks composing a song. The family's thoughts were non-existent to me as I composed, trying to find the perfect melody to describe the alpha's beauty. Only one thought brought me out of the haze every day. Edward, time for school. Alice's voice was excited, having just come out of a vision. I tried to access the vision through her mind but quickly became agitated when her mind showed me sitting there on the piano with exaggerated time. Every second like minutes. We hopped in the Volvo, Rosalie excited for the first day as a sophomore. This means we can stay longer. Plus we don't have to do gym till next year. Rosalie's thoughts were extremely excited seeing as this was their first time pretending to be sophomores. Morning classes passed in a blur and the only thing to keep me entertained was Rosalie being frustrated with the teachers. Why did they teach the same classes to the freshmen as they do us? Hopefully not the same thing though, because that would be a real waste of time that could actually be used to teach. Rosalie said to Emmett. They walked to lunch. They entered the lunchroom, followed by Alice and Jasper. I didn't follow them though, I was distracted by a thought. I bet she'll skip show. Today I haven't been able to talk to her in months. She didn't even go to this school then and I got to talk to her more than I do now. A girl named Angela thought. Though that wasn't what distracted me. The picture that followed was of the alpha of the pack that we met yesterday. I continued on walking and as soon as I opened the doors the alpha crashed into me. She was falling down as I used my arms to steady her. She was still as beautiful as 2 weeks ago. Are you alright? I asked. You have girls actually throwing themselves at you, Emmett thought, though I could hear the actual concern for her in his voice. I'm fine, she replied, though her eyes were assessing everyone around her and she started to fidget a bit, her breathing becoming heavy as she had what looked like a panic attack. Her eyes became foggy and unclear as her head tilted back and she fainted. The lunchroom stopped to watch. Alice, any advice, at all? I asked low for even the closest human to hear. Take her to the nurse. Alice responded, though she was giggling in her head about something. I took her limp body and placed it in my arms. Noticing that her werewolf scent was lessening with each passing minute, I gently lifted her up as Alice took my jacket off and covered her with it, leaving a pocket for air. Then I noticed that most of the lunchroom had gone back to their lunches and conversations. I walked out of the building and into the rain, her breathing coming down from its spike. I carried her into the nurse and threw down my jacket from her to let her breathing come more evenly. Mrs. Cope saw her in my arms and immediately thought the worst. Is she okay? I hope Bella isn't one of the steroids users, though that would explain her growing so tall and eating a lot but not gaining weight. Oh, just wait until I tell John, he'll probably blow a gasket at the possibility. Oh, we have to notify her dad too. What was his name? What was his name? Mrs. Cope raved in her mind. The nurse ushered me to lay her down on the bed. Why did she faint? The nurse asked, though I saw that she was more curious if I was interested in her. I don't know. The girl began to stir and I faintly heard Mrs. Cope talking to a man named Billy. Where am I? Her voice was groggy but still was like wind chimes. Bella, Mrs. Cope began, you fainted in the lunch room, and do you want to tell my why? I've Edie contacted your father. It's best to get it out in the open. At least I finally know her name. Though Bella's eyes turned angrily at her as she began to yell. I am sick and tired of everyone accusing me of using drugs or steroids. I just had a growth spurt. God, do you not see that I don't have doped up eyes? I'll even take a drug test if you want me to. Just God, stop accusing me. Mrs. Cope med surprised, but she was still suspicious. Bella got up from the bed and again crashed into, finally noticing my presence. Mrs. Cope had gone back to her station and the nurse had a recently ill patient that came in. Hello, it's nice to see you again. I awoke to find a large white mass in front of me only to realize it was the ceiling a few minutes later. Crazy, Bella. At this point everything hit me at once, my imprint. Being surrounded, black dots, and then nothing, absolutely nothing. I was still sleepy, and if I was being honest to myself, I wanted to go back asleep. I knew that I had to get up at some point or another. Then it hit me, where am I? Bella, Mrs. Cope, the secretary said, you fainted in the lunch room, and do you want to tell my why? I've already contacted your father. It's best to get it out in the open. Quote, I knew Mrs. Cope was beginning to have suspicions since she had been talking to her husband John. She had been hinting that she would rather have me in a rehab place than a high school. Plus she thought kids on the res were dumb and should stay there. With her constant suggestions and trying to help, I was sick and tired of it, so I did something I regretted. I blew up, metaphorically. I am sick and tired of everyone accusing me of using drugs or steroids. I just had a growth spurt. God, do you not see that I don't have doped up eyes? I'll even take a drug test if you want me to. Just God, stop accusing me. I yelled at her as I stared at her. Mrs. Cope seemed surprised, but you could see the suspicion in her eyes. I got up from the bed and again shed into a brick wall or maybe marble. My brain was a bit frazzled right now. For all I know, it could be a desk. Mrs. Cope had gone back to her station, still suspicious, and I bet making plans and arrangements for a drug test. Hello, it's nice to see you again. The brick wall spoke and he oddly sounded like my imprint. I looked up and it was my imprint, and just like last time noticed his scent was in fact lessening in the vampire sense. I stumbled back and hit a curtain as I noticed my surroundings. It was the school's nurse station. I looked back to my imprint as I erased the fear from my body. Convincing myself that if he attacked me I could defend myself. As if I could hurt him. Hello, nice to see you. I responded. I don't think I introduced myself last time. I'm Edward Cullen. Well, it was nice to find out what my imprint's name was. Edward, a nice name, uncommon, and beautiful. I'm Bella Black, nice to meet you again, Edward. My voice was slightly panicked and my vision was blurred. Being panicked was beginning to become a habit of mine. I could hear the bell going off in the hallway and heard hundreds of feet exiting the classroom. Well, I believe that's my cue. I said. Actually, sweetie, really, Mrs. Cope. I called your father and he said he couldn't come right now, but he'll be able to pick you up in an hour or so. That's okay, Mrs. Cope. I was really starting to question why I was being fake nice to her anymore. I have my truck here. Actually, Edward interrupted Mrs. Cope's response, I don't think that's wise for you to drive out in your condition. He was right, but I'm not going to tell him that. Well, where else will I go? I'm not staying here with Mrs. Cope. My eyes drifted toward her to see she had went back to work. Just then another vampire walked in. She was short and had black cropped hair. Almost like a pixie now that I think about it. Actually, you can come over our house. Carlisle has some things to discuss with you. I'm Alice, by the way. Alice said. If it's something about the treaty, because then could we meet at the river? I was really trying to keep a professional status and keep as far away from Edward as possible. You mean the treaty line? Alice said energetically, yes, something similar to the treaty. We would like it if you came and met the family extensively. Alice glanced at Edward when she said this. I don't really think that's a great idea right now. And I have to get home. I started moving toward the door when I crashed into the wall. Right now I really don't think I should be driving, let alone phasing. Why am I still dizzy? You know what, maybe that's not such a bad idea. Meeting the rest of your coven. At least I can get closer to him. Good then, she sure was energetic. Edward lead her to the Volvo, I'll drive hers. Let's go. I followed her out and was met with a silver car. Volvo was printed on the back. Hey, when you got money, why not spend it? We got in the car, I strapped in and off we were. I was still slightly dizzy when we got to there. Thing that plagued me was why. There was big and beautiful, I wanted to dance around it like Alice. Carlisle and a brown-haired woman greeted us at the door. The woman was smiling and it became apparent that she was Carlisle's mate when he began to watch me cautiously when she began to move toward me. That thought was silly, wasn't it? To be afraid of someone who could turn into a wolf, who could easily reach the ceiling when transformed. Of course it was silly when that very being could kill you and tear you to shreds, showing you unbelly. Evable pain until you're convinced that the pain killed you, not the monster. The woman somehow seemed unaffected by the apparent hostility that came over my face at the dreaded thoughts that were invading my head. Was I that obvious? Why were my thoughts suddenly filled of self-pity? Maybe it was the dizziness. The woman stopped in front of me and her eyes were careful, but not in the same way as her mate. More like she was waiting to see if I would take off or break down crying. But she would be there either way. Hello, I'm Esme. It's so nice to officially meet you. She held her hand out. I shook her hand and responded. It's nice to meet you to Esme, I'm Bella. I'm sorry that in our last encounter we weren't introduced. Please come in. You can eat any snacks in the kitchen. I apologize if anything is not to your liking. Actually, do you have any Advil? I have a bit of a headache. I sneaked a look at her mate and was surprised to find her mate more relaxed. But it was a this for that trait, I could tell. More calm, less caution. More calm, less anxiety. In a flash Esme was back with a bottle of Advil and a bottle of water. The dizziness was fading but a headache was coming on, I was sure. The expression on Esme's face was happy, as if she was happy she could help me in any way. I poured basically half the bottle of Advil in my palm, pushed them in my mouth, and swallowed. I knew drowsiness followed after taking the pills, for humans anyway. After I finished swallowing the pills, I noticed Carlisle and the rest of their coven staring at me, Esme particularly in horror. Whatever they were seeing was defiantly passing over my head. You're only supposed to take 1 or 2 pills. Not half the bottle. We have to get you to the hospital. Carlisle looked like he was freaking out as he walked slowly toward me, trying not to startle me. It didn't help at all. I still shrunk into myself slightly, which Carlisle could tell. I'm fine. It's part of my ability, I guess you could say. I wasn't going to tell them more than they needed to know about being a shapeshifter. The worst that could happen is if I get drowsy. Or worse. What did you need to know about the treaty? Because I checked my watch, only 45 minutes till Dad probably arrives at the school, that leaves 15 minutes for conversation. We only have about 15 to finish this conversation. Well, the rest of our coven is currently away. Another vampire came down the stairs. His smell was slightly more burning than the others, even if their scents were becoming less unappealing. I briefly wondered if it was because of my imprint. This is Jasper, Alice's mate. Hello, nice to meet you, Bella. His voice had a slight hypnotizing ring to it. Hello, Jasper. Jasper moved towards Alice behind me. His eyes always watching me. Well, let's get down to business, Carlisle said. I was then led into the dining room as each member of the family that was present sat down at the table. It has come, Carlisle continued, to our attention that there has been a lot of our kind coming through these parts and 9 recent killings in Seattle. We would just like to know how far your procession spread out and if you were going to intervene with the killings. We have feeling that it's associated with vampires. Alice piped in. The killings seem to have a vampire's trademarks. But we just wanted to alert you to the fact. Alright then, I'll alert the rest of my pack. This being professional business was making me tired. Maybe I could lie down just for a while. I think it's time for me to go. My dad will be waiting for me. I then yawned lowly, but I could see each of their heads snap up and look up at me. Edward stood up, and walked over to the door. The rest of the family stayed seated at the dining room table. I walked up beside Edward as he opened the door, following him out to the car. He walked slowly like he was talking to someone, and I was beginning to get annoyed and drowsy. That's when my words hit me from earlier: the worst that could happen is if I get drowsy. That's why they were staring. Were they worried? Or did they find a possible weakness that they thought that they could use against me? Edward finally reached the car and I quickly ran into the passenger's seat. The moment I buckled into the seat I fell asleep. Then I dreamed, a dream that was glorious, something I wished would come true. The night was cold and cruel against my skin, but I couldn't feel it because my skin was too hot to fully feel the effects. I was in a house watching a plane of emptiness. My stomach was big and round, a child was in it. Then I panicked. I didn't want to have anyone's child except Edward. 3 figures moved from my left, coming behind me. One of the figures wrapped his arms around me. I figured this had to be the father of my child when the second biggest figure came into view. He had hair like Edward and my nose. He was like my dream child. "Mommy, when do you think they'll stop fighting?" the child questioned. "Yeah, Mommy, when can we go back?" The second child looked just like the first, only smaller. He had brown eyes and crazy wild hair that was like Edward but only had my color of hair. "Sweetie, what are you talking about?" That's when I noticed the world, my world anyway, was in chaos. My pack was fighting the Cullens. Even my father, who was in a wheelchair, was beating a Cullen with a cane. That's when I began to run towards them, to stop the fight. I had to be careful with my pregnant belly. I ran and ran only to be hit by a shield. When the figure came back and whispered, "You can't get to them. You can't help them. You can't stop the fight, they'll just fight and fight till they die trying to kill each other." I tried and tried again to get past the shield, but it was no use. I saw everyone die, fighting each other when I couldn't help them. Till only 2 were left, Jake and Edward fighting. They fought and fought until Jacob delivered the final blow. As I watched Edward crumble, I tried one last time to get through and broke down when I couldn't. I sat there, crying, as Jacob set Edward's remains on fire and he literally danced on them. Coming to the house was a big chance for Alice to make. The vision she had was obviously something that she was immensely pleased with, since she sung her favorite songs of the decade. Or maybe she was just trying to keep me out of her head. Either possibility did not bother me. She had convinced Bella to come to the house. This fact I was excessively happy about. The car ride was quiet to quiet, really. Bella seemed lost in her own thoughts. She looked so sick I was worried she would pass out or worse. Certain thoughts plagued me on our way to the house. Why was Carlisle insisting that Bella come to the house? What would they have to discuss? More importantly, did this have anything to do with Alice's vision? When reached the house, Bella immediately got out of the car, hobbling a bit as she walked, though I don't think she noticed. Esme was at the door along with Carlisle. Esme was cautious as she looked at Bella, but not in the way that she was waiting for her to attack. Something different. Almost like a mother hen looking after her chick, a motherly sense to help her. "Hello, I'm Esme. It's so nice to officially meet you." Poor thing. She has no idea. Happily ever after indeed. "It's nice to meet you to Esme, I'm Bella. I'm sorry that in our last encounter we weren't introduced. Please come in. You can eat any snacks in the kitchen. I apologize if anything is not to your liking. Actually, do you have any Advil? I have a bit of a headache." That would explain her looking ill, but it seemed more than that. In a flash, Esme was back with a bottle of A. Deville from Carlisle medical bag and a bottle of water. Bella looked relieved to see the little bottle. The next thing that happened surprised me and terrified me. Bella poured half of the bottle of Advil into her hand, threw it into her mouth, and swallowed it with the help of the whole bottle of water. What did she do? We have to go to the hospital now, Carlisle thought. Most of us were in shock. Was she trying to kill herself? I tried to check her thoughts. But it was silent. Why hadn't I noticed before? I heard her in the field last time. I stared at her in trying to understand her reason for doing this. The rest of the family seemed to be doing the same thing. I should know why, but I couldn't hear her thoughts why. Esme was the one who was most horrified. Why would she try to kill herself? She has so much to live for. She asked me. I would have to figure out later why I couldn't hear her thoughts. Bella noticed we were staring at her and had a questioning look on her face. What? This moment I was wondering if she had gone crazy. Half a bottle of Advil. What was she thinking? You're only supposed to take 1 or 2 pills. Not half the bottle. We have to get you to the hospital. Carlisle looked like he was freaking out as he walked toward Bella. She cringed slightly away from Carlisle. Carlisle was displeased with the fact that she was not comfortable with him. But he had to get her to the hospital now. Is it too early for a stomach pump? Or should we give her something to regurgitate it? Carlisle thought. I'm fine. It's part of my ability, I guess you could say. Bella explained. I was pretty sure the drugs would affect her in one way or another. I was hoping it wasn't fatal. The worst that could happen is if I get drowsy. I hope that's all that would happen. Bella continued talking. What did you need to know about the treaty? Because, we only have about 15 to finish this conversation. Well, the rest of our coven is currently away. Carlisle said as Jasper walked down the stairs. She seems nervous or nauseated, Jasper thought. This is Jasper, Alice's mate. Hello, nice to meet you, Bella. Jasper said as he introduced himself to Bella. Hello, Jasper. Jasper moved towards Alice behind Bella, his eyes always watching Bella. Protectiveness, I wonder why. Well, let's get down to business, Carlisle said. We walked to the living room, or more of a designated meeting area. Carlisle motioned for us to sit down. We did. I heard Alice go from happy in her thoughts to completely mad. It has come, Carlisle said, maybe we should have informed him more about this. To our attention that there has been a lot of our kind coming through these parts and 9 recent killings in Seattle. We would just like to know how far your protection spread out ND if you were going to intervene with the killings. Why didn't I notice that the killings were getting worse? Edward, the killings have been getting worse, and you know what would happen if the Volturi came here. Marcus still hasn't returned. We have feeling that it's associated with vampires. Alice said. Or more like someone with a vendetta against the Volturi. The killings seem to have a vampire's trademarks. But we just wanted to alert you to the fact. Alright then, I'll alert the rest of my pack. Bella responded, I think it's time for me to go. My dad will be waiting for me. Bella yawned. And I froze. Did this mean we were going to have to take her to the hospital? What about the wolves? Were they going to attack if we did? Go, Edward. Take her to the school. Someone will be waiting for her. Alice thought. I looked at her and raised an eyebrow. No one bat a wolf of her pack. I slowly got up from the table and walked to the door. Bella followed quietly behind me as I continued to listen in on Alice and Carlisle conversation. We should have told him. Alice argued with Carlisle. No, we have to let it manifest itself. You know what would happen if he knew now? Carlisle said. Maybe. But you know my visions are subjective. Even if he decided to do it doesn't mean that it will happen like that. Alice continued to argue. I could hear the irritation in her thoughts. Yes, but this might be his only chance at it. Even the tribe's legends say it's meant to be. Carlisle said. A book was in his thoughts, the title blanked out of his mind. Alice went into a vision again. Edward, stop listening in. You'll find out eventually. Alice thought. I respected Alice's wishes and stopped listening to their conversation. Though I was beyond curious to find out what were they talking about. We reached the car before I even realized I had just spent 3 minutes walking from the door to outside. I walked to the driver's side as Bella ran to the passenger. We were off. 5 minutes later Bella fell asleep. Her head against the door. She was incredibly beautiful, though I couldn't believe I thought that. She was a wolf. Even if she was beautiful, I shouldn't be thinking like this. She started mumbling in her sleep. As I hit the accelerator. I was wondering if she could feel the speed increase in her dream. We arrived at the school 20 minutes after it let out. The only person in the parking lot was a man was pacing by a rabbit talking rapidly into a phone. I don't know where she is. The nurse said she left. He yelled into the phone. It was a good thing that no one was here right now or they'd be freaking out. I parked the car right next to his rabbit but he didn't seem to notice. I got out of the car and walked to the man. Hello, I said. I was hoping that he knew who I was. He turned around finally noticing me. What do you want, Leech? He said. What does he want? I have to look for Bella and a leech is trying to talk to me. Not a good day, not a good day. Dad is going to be so mad. I'm sorry but I believe you were looking for someone. I gestured toward his phone. I think you were looking for your alpha. Is this leech holding her hostage? Or is he just the messenger, he thought. Yeah, have you seen her? Are you holding her hostage? Yes, she's in my car. She went to our house, to discuss some things. Why did she go by herself? He walked to the car and knocked on the window. Bella didn't wake up, but I heard her quietly scream in her sleep. Why is she asleep? Did you knock her out? I almost answered his mental question out loud. She fell asleep on the ride here. She should have been on guard. Who knows if he would have attacked her? I almost growled at his thoughts. Why would I ever hurt her? Even if I was her mortal enemy. Okay, maybe that's reason enough. He opened the door and immediately picked her up before she could fall out. He walked over to his car and put her in the seat, buckling her in all while his thoughts were a tornado of confusion. Should I thank him? He thought. No, we have to go. I would like to hear Bella's explanation for this. He nodded my way and hopped in his car. I watched as he drove away with Bella fast asleep. I hopped in my car and drove back home. Then a thought came to my mind. Why couldn't I hear her thoughts? Was there something preventing me from doing so, or did she know of my gift and somehow blocked me out? I breathed out a sigh as Bella's scent filled my nose. Why did it smell less like a wolf and more normal? I arrived at home to find the family exactly like I left them. Only now Rosalie and Emmett were there. Edward, we need to talk, Alice said. This wasn't going to be pleasant. I was slightly aware of my surroundings, the moving car and the slight shapes outside. Though I felt as if I was in a third person's point of view. The car was shaking slightly and my eyes were too blurry really make out the shapes of the vehicle. I looked at the driver of the car, his shape being defined by my less blurry eyes. It was Jacob. What happened to Edward? Jake was shaking as he drove, his nostrils flared as he glared at the road in front of him. Jake. My voice was groggy and I had to clear it twice before it came out right. Bella, would you like to explain why I just picked you up from the Leech's car? Or how about how you went to their house with no one there to help you if they decided to attack? His voice was shaking with fury, nothing compared to his body. Well, you see, it's a funny story really. My voice trailed off. I knew he was expecting an explanation, but I didn't want to tell him the truth. Oh, how funny is it? Like haha funny, or how about oh I decided to visit the enemy's house and could have been killed funny? His glare turned from the road to me. It was safe, I was fine. I retorted, you wouldn't understand anyway. Oh, I understand, something's wrong. You been acting different, not sleeping well, and sneaking about the house. You even look like you're waiting for someone to start yelling at you. Jake started pulling at his, frustrated at me. Okay Bells, I know you're in a funk right now, but you have to snap out of it. Okay. He was still yelling at me. His words hit me hard. I knew I was slightly depressed that I hadn't seen Edward in 2 weeks. But I didn't know he noticed. It's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine, okay. I just wasn't feeling well. Understatement of the year. It's not fine. It's anything but fine. Tell me what wrong, why are you acting like this? He gestured to me, why are you acting so different? You really want to know why I've acting different? I've imprinted okay, on a vampire. I screeched back at him. You want to know the when and the who? It was one of the Cullens when we first met them. I didn't want to tell him like this. Not while I was angry, I didn't want to. Jacob just stared at me in shock, his eyes showing the betrayal he felt. No, don't look at me like that, Jake, okay, you know I couldn't help it. His eyes flashed with anger, more than I had ever seen. Bella, you betrayed the pack, why? He questioned. It chooses us, Jake, you know that. I crossed my arms across my chest and stared out the window. I couldn't help it. He was my imprint. I already felt like a traitor. He was not making it any better. He slowed the car down, coming to a complete stop with a jerking motion. He took the key out of the ignition, turning slowly towards me. But why, Bella, why? You could have stayed away from him. He stared at me, begging me to just do what he said. I was furious. Oh yes, and and you find your imprint, do you want me to tell you to stay away from her? Or how about I use my alpha voice to force you to stay away from her? He flinched at the thought. He knew how powerful an imprint was. Because you know it would slowly kill you and you're insisting that I stay away from my imprint. I was vibrating in my seat, so close to shifting. I was losing it. I could feel myself slipping slowly. I kicked open the car door, running into the woods to prevent from phasing inside. Jake was following me, his footsteps hot on my trail. The burning was coming closer and closer, then I exploded phasing into a wolf. I ran away from Jake. I knew if I turned around, I was going to attack him. He had insulted me and my imprint. He was suggesting I stay away from, and I was going to fight him if it meant staying with Edward. I knew if I turned around, I could kill him. It didn't matter that he was my brother, it didn't matter that he could change into a wolf too. All that mattered was that he was suggesting I stay away from Edward, he knew it would kill me to do so, and he was suggesting I do it anyway. I jumped over the river, running and running, leaving Jake glare at me behind me. Why didn't I have a normal imprint? They were all blocking their thoughts out, focusing on one word, army. Esme was the only one concerned about something else. The same book that was in Carlisle's mind was in hers. Edward. Marcus is making an army. Carlisle stated. He's out for revenge against Arrow. He's mad, Edward, mad. Anger flared up. I had just found Bella, and the past was coming to bite me. Where is he making the army? I demanded. Alice's thoughts were saying how much she hated to tell me the news. I directed my gaze towards her, waiting for her to tell. Alice, where is he making the army? She looked away and I glared, Jasper sending out calming waves toward me as my anger spiked. He glared at me in return, daring me to act out on the anger. Edward, calm down now. Jasper thought. I'm sorry, Alice. I looked around the table holding each of their gazes, but would someone tell me, where is he making the army? Seattle, Esme whispered. Her thoughts weren't matching her words. They were still focused on the book. Damn it, I screeched. Why Seattle of all places? I shot up from my seat and began pacing. I stared at Alice. When? 2 months, maybe 3, she said. It gets worse. The Volturi are coming. Arrow's still mad, Edward, and do you know why he's mad, Edward? Rosalie asked sarcastically. Because you couldn't keep your mouth closed. Oh yes, let's tell T. He depressed vampire how his mate was killed. You're an idiot, really, telling one of the leaders that his mate was murdered, she thought. Rosalie, it was a mistake. Have you ever thought that maybe I didn't know that he was behind me? I yelled at her. Enough, Carlisle said, the point is we need to prepare. We don't know if the Volturi are planning to kill us. But we need to be on guard, don't tell the wolves. Carlisle. We're telling the wolves. You know why. Esme stood up, her arms across her chest as she stared at Carlisle. Esme, be reasonable please, Esme interrupted. He's been alone for so long. Not telling them will result in nothing. And the kind of nothing that we want to avoid, Carlisle. Esme's face was furious, her eyes coal black. A picture of Marcus staring at nothing entered Carlisle's mind. I interrupted their conversation. Why can't we tell the wolves? We are telling the wolves. She ignored me as she glared at Carlisle. He's going to find out. Alice piped in. Whether it be today or tomorrow and it will come out, Carlisle. We have to let him find out, by himself. He defended himself. We can't avoid this forever, we're only prolonging this. Emmett thought. We're not going to step over this. Rosalie spoke up. Edward, she addressed me, the alpha of the Quileute pack has imprinted on you. I was perplexed. I knew they were desperate for me to find someone to love. But to insist she had imprinted on me, was pushing it. Way to get the pick of the litter, she thought. What? How do you know this? I demanded to know. They had to have proof if they were making accusations. Esme's thoughts showed the book, the title now clear, Legends of the Peninsula. The book, Edward, it has Quileute legends. We saw the signs. When she moved, you moved. When you moved, she moved, we know. Even her father even came by saying that he suspected she imprinted on you, we know. She thought. It's not even possible, I said. I don't even know her enough to like her. I lied. Edward, have you ever wondered about those feelings you have when you're around her? When you want to hold her hand. Or when you want to crush her to your chest and protect her? Jasper said. Yeah, I can feel your ignorance, but I know you have those feelings. She feels those things too. He shook his head. She's even more ignorant about it than you, though. Jasper, I reasoned, yes I want to. I don't know her enough to love her. Edward, Emmett spoke up, you spent 14 days writing a song for her, thinking about holding her, and protecting her. Hell, you went to the border. And kept on thinking about talking to her. I stared at him in shock. I was hoping they were ignorant to those facts, I hadn't even acknowledged them. He continued, yeah we know, we're not stupid. We knew you weren't going to, but we saw. We even saw the dazed look on your face when you came in earlier. I don't mean to be hard on you bro, but you know it, we know it. Hell her father knows it. Emmett. They saw more than I thought. Everyone's eyes followed Esme as she rose. Back to the matter at hand, Esme said. We are telling the wolves and that's final. Her words were directed to Carlisle but her eyes were on me. Maternal love showed in her thoughts, at the chance of me finding love. I ignored her thoughts. Carlisle, why are you insisting that we don't tell the wolves? Because it isn't their fight, I gaped at him. How wasn't it their fight? It's more than that, Esme thought. He's afraid that you will end up losing her like Marcus. Even worse, since you're his son. She's not indestructible and she can't be changed. It's going to be fought, by forks, Carlisle. It's their fight. I didn't give away Esme's thoughts. Carlisle paused for a moment, taking in each of our expressions. Carlisle shook his head and sighed. We'll tell them, he said reluctantly. They dispersed, all of their thoughts focusing on the upcoming battle. My thoughts focused on one person. Bella. Had she really imprinted on me? Or were they lying? Regardless, we were going to have to fight. Bella hadn't been to school in 3 days, it was making me anxious. The battle loomed over my mind but I was pushing it back. My thoughts returned to Bella, relaxing me. I asked why was she so appealing? Why had she reeled me in with her beauty, something no other woman was able to accomplish? Her thoughts were now silent to me and as a result had no answers about the one thing I was desperate to her confirm. She had imprinted. Hopefully it was on me. Did she love me, or was it something as easy as friendship? Did I like her, even possibly love her? It sounded impossible, but was it? On Thursday, Bella had walked into school as if nothing happened. On the outside, in her eyes, I could see she was distressed. The day ran its course as I waited restlessly for biology to come. Until I passed the office and heard Mrs. Cope's thoughts. Isabella is here today. Time for the drug test. Where is that number? I stopped listening. A drug test? Isabella wouldn't be able to pass that. I had to get her out of the school. I ran down the hallway finding her just outside the biology room, talking to Angela. I slowed down as I approached them. Bella immediately staring at me. Angela walked into the biology room, not even noticing me. I grabbed Bella's arm and pulled her to the side. She looked up at me with curiosity. Why wasn't she arguing to be let go? Bella, we have to go now. I said. Why? She asked. She was watching me closely as I led her towards the school exit. Mrs. Cope is having every student take a drug test. I responded. She cursed under her breath. I won't be able to pass it and neither will you. I heard Mrs. Cope coming towards the exit, a pamphlet on drugs in her hands. I pulled Bella into the closet, putting my hand over her mouth when she tried to speak as Mrs. Cope passed us. I've got Isabella now. She'll be kicked out of school, and we'll never have to see her again. She thought. We have to go, I whispered. We ran out of the supply closet, through the exit, and into my car in record time. I revved the engine as I sped away on the highway. Bella was laughing hysterically beside me now that we were not in danger. She took me up on my offer, crazy judgmental woman. She muttered repeatedly. Where are we going? She asked louder as I hopped on the expressway. I want to take you somewhere. Will you come with me? I asked. Sure. She looked up at me shyly. It was so out of character I did a double take. But she was looking out of the window, a smile on her face. We arrived at the trail. I walked to her door, opening it as she stared around. I gestured to the forest as her face flushed, before starting towards the trail. Why had I never seen this side of her? Bella, wrong way. She waited patiently as I shut the car door. I led the way, she followed almost silently behind me until she was matching my speed. I started asking questions, first simple things, her favorite flowers, colors, and even TV shows. Slowly getting into her child memories, places she wanted to go to, and her family. Each question she answered with enthusiasm, until I asked about her brother, she became distant. She avoided the question by starting to ask all my previous questions. We were taking so long that asked I her if she wanted to run there, vampire speed against werewolf speed. She agreed to. All I had to do was point in the direction towards the meadow and she was off, getting a head start. I started laughing as I chased after her, happy to not have the battle on my mind. She seemed so carefree. She seemed like a bird just let out of their cage. I followed her scent when I lost sight of her, making sure she wouldn't get lost. Her scent had a almost floral scent. No. Almost all traces of the horrid werewolf scent gone. I arrived at the meadow. She was in the meadow laying down, a peaceful expression on her face. A content smile on her face, with her arms behind her head. "Bella, have you imprinted on me?" I whispered. Her eyes snapped up in shock. Staring at me, her mouth tried to form words as she lifted her body up. Her eyes told me what her mouth couldn't. Yes, she had imprinted on me. 4 days. 4 days in the Canadian wilderness, in my wolf form. 4 days, having to eat like a wild animal, eating whatever animal crossed my path. Even the bear I had to fight. With his claws leaving bloody marks in my fur. All because of my brother who hated me, the shame I felt after talking to him, and the anger I felt when he said I leave my imprint alone. I had lost sleep over it. More than I cared to admit. By the end of the 4 days, I felt like a true wild animal. Ready to fight for my territory and attacking the weakest creatures for food. I was ashamed that I had attacked small animals, but I was starving. Even small animals like rabbits were prey for my grumbling stomach. I didn't even go home when I went into the Quileute territory. Preferring to just go to Leah's house and make up a white lie to take a shower. The lie soon turned into the worst mistake possible when Jake showed up. I had to jump out the window to avoid him. I snatched my backpack from behind the passenger seat, and ran, knowing he would catch my scent anyway. My hair was disheveled when I arrived at school, the dark circles under my eyes were not seen thanks to Leah's foundation. When I walked into school, I had caught a flash of Edward's bronze hair. But my head didn't turn fast enough for me to see him, sleep deprivation slowing down my reflexes. Period and lunch were spent in the library sleeping for 2 hours, and I thanked Mrs. Cope over and over again in my head for making free period and lunch near the same hours. By then I had gained enough sleep to stay cheerful and enthusiastic, talking to Angela outside of biology about the assignments I missed in the last 3 days. Edward's scent hit me when Angela started to walk towards the classroom. A hand hooked around my arm pulling me towards the exit. Edward's scent surrounded me as I stumbled to keep up. I looked up to him, my eyes filled with questions. "Bella, we have to go now." His voice was like honey. The words urgency evident in his voice. "Why?" I asked. It was my first day back in a sanctuary, where I didn't have to pretend the outside world existed. Edward pulled me along, taking me towards the school exit. "Mrs. Cope is having every student take a drug test," he explained. I let a few profanities out. "I won't be able to pass it and neither will you," he continued. I heard Mrs. Cope coming towards us, her footsteps certain and confident with each passing second. He pulled me into the supply closet, leaving the crack open so I could see. Mrs. Cope passed a Hugs Not Drugs pamphlet in her arms, a smirk on her face. Confidence radiated from even as she walked away, the click of her heels fading. "We have to go," Edward whispered. We sprinted towards the exit into his car. He started his car, the purr of the engine a hum. I started laughing hysterically. I had been thanking Mrs. Cope earlier and now she wanted me to take a drug test. Even more funny was that she took me up on my offer to take a drug test, which included the rest of the student body. Crazy judgmental woman. Edward went on the ramp towards the highway going. Curiosity got the best of me and I asked, "Where are we going?" Quote, "I want to take you somewhere. Will you come with me?" he asked. I couldn't refuse him, he looked hopeful. "Sure," I said. He looked gleeful as I turned towards the window. Just happy to be near him. The road tuned into a small road, winding with sharp turns. We arrived next to a trail. Edward walked to my door, opening it as I hopped. I started out towards the trail, knowing that Edward could catch up with me easily. "Bella, wrong way," he said behind me. I waited as he started towards the opposite direction. I blushed, glad he couldn't see it. He led the way. The forest dense with branches hanging in our way. Edward started asking me questions, each I answered with enthusiasm. Then he asked about Jacob and I redirected all his questions back at him. When it was somewhere close to 5 o'clock, Edward challenged me. Werewolf speed against vampire speed. Werewolves were faster than vampires, I thought. Once he pointed in a direction, I was off giggling at the absurd feelings I was having. I felt carefree like nothing could touch me. A meadow was slowly coming into view and I slowed down talking in the beautiful wildflowers. I lay down with my arms behind my head, content just to have the sun shining on my skin. He arrived in the meadow mere minutes after I arrived. I pretend to not hear him as he walked over. "Bella, have you imprinted on me?" he whispered. I snapped open my eyes. How did he find out? Who told him? Would he reject me? What? I stuttered out. Who told you? Your father. I stared at him. My father, he didn't have a clue about my imprint. Or did he? My father, my voice made it sound like a question. I prayed to God he didn't find no. I had already been banished by my brother. To see my father hate me and banish me from the pack would break me. Push me over the edge. A panic attack started to hit me, breathing became difficult, and cloudy fuzz started to cover my eyes. Did he know? Would he banish me from the pack? Something started hitting my back softly, telling me to breathe. Everything was going to be okay. The haze lifted slowly and Edward was right in front of me. Worry clouded his eyes. "Bella, why didn't you tell me you imprinted on me?" His voice was soft, the words calming and soothing. I looked him in the eye and said one single word as I curled into a ball: rejection. He shook his head and simply picked me up in his arms, holding me in comfort, whispering soothing words. "Bella," he mumbled, "I love you, my Bella. I would never reject you." He continued in an even softer voice, like a lullaby. "Why were you gone? My brother, he wanted to keep me away from you. He knew it would physically kill me to do so." I whispered back, "He knew and I had to get away from him. I could have hurt him, worse. I could have killed him." I snuggled further into his chest, my head resting on his shoulder blade. Tears sprung in my eyes, but I wasn't going to let them go. I was ashamed I even think killing my own brother, let alone come so close to doing it. My father knew. Would he be like Jacob? Or would he kick me out? These thoughts made the tears filling up in my eyes spill over. I hid them well, hoping that they would blend in. I knew what lay outside this meadow, this perfect domain. I had to be a strong leader and guide my pack. I had to be fearless. Emotions tied you, but I was willing to be tied. As long as it was to him. Edwards was going to be the only person to see me like this. "Don't cry," he said. "What did you do while you were gone?" he asked. Acted like a wild animal, I giggled. I was happy. Sue me, I hunted, simple things. I didn't get much sleep. I yawned as if to prove my point. "You can sleep now," he murmured. No, a loose yawn left my mouth, maybe a little bit. My eyes were getting heavy. Edward pulled me up to rest against his chest, his hand intertwined with my right, tracing unseen designs. He held me tight against his chest, his cold chest against my hot skin. His right hand sifted through my hair, lulling me to sleep. Where reality felt like a dream with Edward, my imprint, holding me. "Edward, I love you. More than an imprint love. I love you more than you'll ever know," I whispered as the sleep deprivation took over me. "What?" she stuttered out. "Who told you?" "Your father," I answered. She looked at me in shock. "My father?" It sounded like a question. Her eyes seemed to be darting back and forth looking for something. Her breathing slowed down and she looked like she couldn't breathe. Her eyes were looking for an escape, looking around the meadow. "Bella, are you okay?" My voice was urgent. Was she okay? What was happening? She didn't hear me, but her heartbeat started to speed up. Was she having a panic attack? I was across the meadow in a second, patting her on the back, telling her she was going to be okay. That she had to breathe. I sounded calm, but on the inside, I was panicking, but I knew not to let her know I was panicked. Her eyes were still cloudy, searching around the meadow for an exit. I hit her back softly, not restraining her, knowing the panic attack she was in would cause her to phase. I looked at her eyes again. They weren't cloudy and were staring back at me with sadness. Her breathing picked up and her heart rate slowed. Fear was in her eyes as they stared at me, waiting for me to talk. "Bella, why didn't you tell me you imprinted on me?" I asked. Why hadn't she told me? Did she hate my species that much that she wouldn't act out on her imprint? She looked at me as she curled into a ball, her head resting on the grass. "Rejection," she whispered. I shook my head and picked her up, her arm laying on my shoulder and her legs hanging off my legs. I continued to whisper to her that she was fine. Everything was okay. Why would she think I would reject her? I loved her, something I was admitting to myself for the first time. Bella, I whispered back, I love you, my Bella. I would never reject you. My voice was even lower as I asked, why were you gone? My brother, he wanted to keep me away from you, he knew it would physically kill me to do so. She murmured, it would kill her to be away from me. He knew and I had to get away from him. I could have hurt him, worse, I could have killed him. She snuggled further into my chest. I could smell the salt from her tears as they came to the surface. We laid there for a while, me, holding her. I knew she wasn't mentally here, lost in her thoughts. I couldn't stand that she was crying, not being able to stop them. Don't cry, I said. What did you do while you were gone? I inquired. Acted like a wild animal, she answered with a giggle. She continued. I hunted, simple things. I didn't get much sleep. She yawned and slumped against me. Her eyes partially open. You can sleep now, I murmured. I felt guilty, I was the reason she went away. I was the drift in between her brother and her. No, she yawned again. Maybe a little bit. I pulled her to rest against my chest as I lay down. Putting my left hand into her right, I started tracing a heart into her hand and shifting my right hand through her hair in a soothing manner. Her heartbeat started to slow down, as did her breathing. Her eyes were almost closed when she said one last thing as she drifted into sleep. Edward, I love you. She murmured. More than an imprint love. I love you more than you'll ever know. And she drifted off to sleep. I love you too, my Bella. I'll always be there for you. I promised. I lay with her for the first time. The first of many, I hoped. I would always be there for her. I waited for 3 hours when the sun began to set when I made the decision to take her home. She would be able to sleep there longer. I began moving her into a cradling position, holding her tight to my chest as I sped off. Her arm was tossed around my head, her head protected by my shoulder. And as I looked down at Bella in my arms, I thought of how much I loved her. For the first time in 100 years, I was happy. Utterly and blissfully happy. The run to the car was short. I placed her in the car delicately, making sure not to hit her head. Hopping in the car, I turned the key and started the car. She stirred during the ride, occasionally adjusting for comfort. Sometimes she would speak. Edward, love, imprint, Jacob angry. Brother, she would say. I drove to the treaty line. I was 10 minutes away from the border when my phone rang. Alice flashed across the screen. I opened my phone and had me eardrums. Be victims to the horrible sound that was screeching. Edward, her voice warned, turn the car around. Now. I continued to drive, stopping inches away from the treaty line. I hung up the phone and hopped out the car. A noise was coming from the forest, growling slowly filled the air as a reddish-brown wolf came into view, followed by a dark gray wolf, a horrid stench coming from both of them. The werewolves. Bella, the gray wolf thought, spotting her in the car. What's she doing with a bloodsucker? She's back, the other one thought, and with that leech. I don't know how she could have imprinted on him. Leah, watch him. Fine, Leah thought. She watched me, her thoughts surrounding me as she took on defensive pose. Wondering why Bella was in my car. She looks so happy, I haven't seen her like this before. She changed. Her thoughts flashed to a 15-year-old girl, her eyes expressive and free. Running and laughing with a boy about 2 years younger than her. The girl turned and Bella's eyes were staring at me, happy. How the chips fall, Leah thought. Rustling was coming from a bush and a man stepped out. He was the man who took Bella home. He was a taller version of the boy I had seen in Leah's thoughts. Was this Bella's brother? I wondered. What are you doing here, leech? He growled out. His eyes were angrily darting in between me and the car. How could she, imprinting on a vampire? Sick creature, he thought. What is she doing here anyway? Are you her brother? Are you Jacob? I asked. Was he the reason she was gone? Yes, he answered. Has she been talking about? He wondered. I was mad. He was the reason Bella cried. He was the reason Bella was gone. Do you know what you did to your sister? My voice was furious. Did he know? He turned away, his eyes shying away from me. What did he do to her? Leah thought angrily. I turned to her. You want to know what he did to her? I asked rhetorically. What? Can he hear my thoughts? I ignored her. He told her that even though I was her imprint, she should stay away from me. What? She looked questionably at him. Why? You're a leech, he sneered, even if she did imprint on you. He looked at her with shame. I was beyond angry at him. She imprinted on him. Leah thought. He continued, she's a traitor to the pack. She's no longer welcome. She won't be staying at our house for sure. Oh, he wants to play that card, does he? Leah thought. She walked off into the woods. You want to know what you did to her? You made her have a panic attack. Jacob's eyes flashed with remorse briefly before changing back to a cold hard stare. Jacob. A voice spoke out from the woods, drop it, you know we can't stay away from our imprints. A girl came out, her hair short, only going past her ears. Leah, stay out, she interrupted him. Shut it, Jacob Black, she screeched, this is our alpha, you may have alpha blood in you but you are not the alpha. She glared at him, she is a traitor Leah. She imprinted on a vampire, he yelled back. You're missing the key word here. Imprinted, she couldn't help it. Her voice trailed off. A picture of a russet-skinned man flashed in her thoughts, sorrow evident in her face. I watched silently, seething in my anger as I watched Leah argue with Jacob Black. She's not staying at my house, Leah. He said. Fine, she'll stay at my house. Jacob started inching towards the wood, fury in his thoughts. You won't get past the treaty line. His eyes were daring her to try. Jacob Black, I swear to God if you call the rest of the pack, I will tear a chunk of your arm off. She threatened. You won't succeed. Jacob thought. He slowly backed off. He phased his closing ripping as he ran towards the forest. Idiot, Leah muttered, I meant what I said, she can stay at my house. I nod. Ed heading towards the car and opening the door for her. She stared at me weirdly before hopping in. She continued. Dimwit tried to break up an imprint. She muttered as I sat in the car. Her eyes soft. And as they looked at Bella in the front seat, but turned to me in disgust as she smelled my scent. How can she stand being around them? Why didn't she tell me she imprinted? She was probably afraid that you would react like Jacob did. She shook her head. No, that's not it. It couldn't be, she could have told me. I mean, we saw you guys how long ago, a month or so. She would have imprinted on you then. I started driving off, past the treaty line and into Quileute territory. I could see Jacob in wolf form in the forest, his eyes watching us as we drove. I growled slightly when he started coming forward, as did Leah. He backed away, crawling into the forest. He won't mess with us, Leah whispered. Bella stirred in her sleep, but remained silent. We drove for 20 minutes, until Leah spoke up. She's lucky to imprint, she whispered, only males become werewolves. I stared at her in slight shock. We're the only females, and since there have never been any other females, we thought that females didn't imprint. But she did it, she imprinted. I always knew she was special. Her voice was full of admiration. How was she special? I asked. She was a natural-born leader, must be her black blood. She said, turn left here and pull into the driveway. I pulled in, turning the car off. I was at Bella's door in a second. Grabbing her, I slung her left arm across my neck. Leah hopped out, running to the door to unlock it. I stood there waiting patiently, Bella snoring softly in my arms. Leah waved me in, telling me that her bedroom was to the left. Walking down the hall, I knocked. Iced 3 bedrooms, the one to the left slightly opened. I walked in the slightly ajar room. It was slightly small with a twin-size bed on it and a small closet. A disarray of clothes lay on the floor. I laid Bella on the bed, covering her with the blanket, putting the clothes in the hamper in the hallway. Leah was at the kitchen table when I walked in the kitchen, talking on the phone. Billy, Bella imprinted. Leah paused. You knew. Pause, with a wheelchair. Anyway, she's staying at my house, Billy. I heard yelling on the other end, but it was too faint to distinguish words. Because of dense brainless son who decided she wasn't allowed in your house. She yelled at the phone. Yet her imprint's here, she sighed. Yes, at my house. I don't care if there is a treaty, technically it's null and void. Another pause. No, I'm not exactly thrilled she imprinted on a vampire, but she did. It's not like we can tell her to stay away from him, like your son did. She sneered at him and I could hear Billy on the other line asking in shock if he really did that. This time, he's gone too far. He's been playing this game far too much, Billy. I know Bella doesn't see it, but I see it and I swear to God if he does something like this again, to anyone I will force feed him his tongue, and I mean it, Billy. Set your son straight or so help me I will. She emphasized. I stood in the hallway as she hung up the phone. Leah turned to me, a forced smile on her face. Sit down. What's your name again? Edward, I said curtly. Well, Edward, she pronounced, we only have one thing to do right now. She stood up, moving towards the TV. Turning it on, she finished her sentence. And that is to wait until Bella wakes up. I only have one question: if I'm going to let you stay in my house, she continued. I stared at her in curiosity. What question would that be? Do you like Jeopardy? I nodded and moved to sit on the couch. I would wait for Bella as long as it would take, even through the battle that was coming. The ceiling was white, the floor was wood, and the bed was familiar. Sleepovers had caused me to remember this bed. But the question was, why was I here? Or a better question is, if this was Leah's house, why was the floor clean? I rubbed my eyes, staring at the ceiling again. It had a dent in it, from what I didn't know. I stared around the room for a few minutes. How did I get here? I observed the room. It looked like Leah's. Slowly I tried to stand up, the soreness in my muscles making it hard for me to properly stand. My leg was asleep, causing me to almost fall out of the door, hanging onto the wall until my leg gained feeling. Why was I here? Better yet, how did I get here? Where was Edward? My leg was easier to use as I stumbled down the stairs, nearly hitting the banister. Come on, I was there in 1940s. I think I would know the answer. Edward's voice echoed through the house. If this was Leah's house, why is Edward here? I had to get him out of here. The pack would tear him to shreds. Yes, but no one knows you were in the 1940s, therefore they wouldn't care. Leah said. I heard Leah snort. Walking to the living room, I spotted Leah and Edward sitting on the couch watching Jeopardy. Why were they watching Jeopardy? Never mind, I had to get him out of here, now. As I walked towards the TV, both their heads shot up. Leah's in surprise and Edward's in alarm as he took in anxiety in my face. He was in front me, supporting my body, in less than a second. Bella, his voice was filled distress, is everything okay? We have to get you out of here, the pack will try to kill you. His body relaxed once I finished. I stared at him in shock. Did he want to die? Bella, the pack aren't coming after me. Jacob is, he started to say. Leah cut him off, with a huff. A selfish block of a dimwit who will not try to tell the pack any of this. She glanced away and whispered, I hope. What did Jacob do? I knew that Leah had no kindness for Jacob. For a reason I didn't know. Bella, she began, Jacob has threatened to tell the pack that Edward is over here. Let's not forget that none of them know that you imprinted. Her voice was laced with betrayal as she looked away. So if they see him on our land, he's toast. Bella, I think you should tell the pack. Edward sighed. He looked into my eyes, trying to convey a message as he glanced in between me and Leah. Maybe I should leave. His eyes questioned. I nodded my head. Walking over to him, I stood on my tiptoes and kissed him. Not on cheek or nose, but on his lips. I hated that I hadn't kissed him in the meadow. Our conversation distracting me from even thinking about him. He kissed me back. It only lasted for a second before we pulled away. He kissed me one more time, before whispering in my ear, our first kiss, then he was out of the door before I could blink. Leah was sitting on the couch, choosing to ignore our private moment. I smiled sheepishly at her, but she didn't see. Her eyes were so far away. Leah, are you she interrupted me. Do you know how much it hurt when I found out that you had imprinted? Her eyes still held the same far-off look as I listened to her speak. Why didn't you tell me, or even give a sliver of hope that maybe I would imprint? She shook her head at me. I feel betrayed, Bella. I keep asking myself why you wouldn't tell me. I'm your best friend, yet you didn't tell me that you imprinted. Why? Leah, I was afraid that you would kick me out. You know how much the pack means to me. You're my best friend. If you shunned me on top of my pack, I wouldn't have any family left to turn to. Her eyes met mine. I would have been all alone. Jacob already hates me, and Dad probably wants to kick me out. Not to mention that Paul is probably going to have a field day trying rip me apart. My eyes started water. I couldn't believe I was acting this way. I couldn't even keep myself together. Bella, it's fine. She was cut off by my rambling. Not to mention I've been neglecting the pack. I haven't even made patrol routes since I imprinted. I looked out the window in the living room. Edward's car was gone, to which I was relieved. he wouldn't hear any of this. Sometimes it feels like it's going to break down any minute, I don't even know why, but it feels like there's a clock ticking over my head, telling me that there isn't much time left. Bella, it's fine. It's just I didn't understand why you didn't tell me. I looked her, trying to convey how sorry I was. She looked away and I sighed. I knew that look. She was going to repress the conversation, just like she did with Sam. I let her. Guilt ate up at me, but I let her. Anyway, she cleared her throat. There's something I need to tell you about Jacob. That what? He's right, and he wants to get me kicked out of the pack and become alpha. I laughed, then grimaced. It was hard to see Jacob as alpha, but getting me kicked out of the pack was a possibility. He was my little brother and he didn't exactly have control of his emotions. Leah winced and her glance swept across the room, looking at everything but me. He's kicking me out of the pack. She shook her head, still not looking at me. Bella, he's been trying to become alpha since the day you phased, she said. Determination filled her voice. She was going to convince me that my brother was a traitor. He would never do that. He's my brother. You know, the little kid you played with when you were 6. My voice wavered. He would never do that. She looked sympathetically at me. Bella, he'd been out of control since you haven't been planning patrols. I looked at her with guilt, but she just waved me off before continuing. He's been leaving holes in the plans. It's not by accident either. Seth pointed it out and he just waved him off, telling him that there were no holes. We had to rearrange patrols behind his back. Something's going on, Bella. I don't like it, and I'm this close. She held up her fingers. A centimeter between the two, this close to tearing him off some and finishing his off. But something's going down. Paul's been doing some recon. She shook her head. I looked at her in question, wondering just what had been going on behind my back. I don't know, maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe, but I don't think so. Lines are being drawn. That's never good in a pack, I thought. Who is on whose side? She answered back nervously. Jacob only has Quill and Jared. At least it seems that way. They were best buds. Are you sure they're really planning a something? It's hunch, she said reluctantly. But a hunch is something you should follow. Then we have to wait it out. We'll wait. I paused, thinking briefly. Jacob's my brother, he wouldn't do that to me. Blood is thicker than water. I walked out of the room into cloudy sunlight outside. Leah stayed inside the house. I could hear her muttering to herself, blindness can result in death. I continued to walk, pretending not to hear her mutter. I undressed using the rubber band to tie me clothes to my leg. I felt the hot heat take over me as I transformed. It was easier with the anger I felt. It was time for me to see what was going on with my pack. Mystery person. Bella had been distant the last couple of weeks, were searching her mind, but she kept it locked up like a safe. She thought we didn't notice. I knew what was up. Especially when I came to the school and saw her with a leech. Admittedly, I was stalking her. Not for any romantic purposes, or that I admired her. She was a fucking bitch, just like Leah. At least Leah didn't imprint with our fucking enemy, the one who made us this way. We were on patrol when Bella came up to us, smelling like leech with a fucking suspicious look in her eye. Lee told her she smelled like a bloodsucker, and she came with an excuse saying that she had just had a discussion with the Cullens. Yeah, right, it was bullshit, and I thanked God that she didn't hear that. We have to plan patrols. She looked at each of us as she spoke. I could see the suspicion, no one else could. I knew what was going on. Her eyes scanned over everyone, except me. I could see the trust that would get her destroyed. Leah must have gotten to her, told her I was on her side. Leah was too trusting for her own good. She really thought I was on her side. Yeah, right. Like I would ever be with those bitches. Leah is staying home right now. Split up and take a direction. Someone stay with Seth. No fooling around, we have to stay sharp, something's keeping me on edge. She said sharply. The trust. I couldn't wait to see her expression when she saw I was the one who brought her down. She has it coming, being a traitor, and fucking Billy letting her slide with her little treason. Imprinting on a vampire. She was worse than a bitch. Bella sent the pack away as she came up to me. She sat down and I followed her lead. I wasn't a fucking golden retriever. I knew that she wanted to talk to me, but about what? What's been going on with the pack? Bella asked. Quill and Jared have been hanging out with Jake more. Not sure if they're planning a rebellion or something. I thought. Little did she know they had nothing to do with Jake, they were just his friends, not his partners. The rest of the gang was on patrol, stuck up to listen to our conversation. My pack is falling apart at the seams. Her mind whispered. Yeah, that's what happens when you're a traitor. Has Sam been doing patrols since I've been gone? She continued. Yeah, I replied, he's been planning a few of them, Jake's been doing the rest. Leaving holes open so big that any vamp could get through. Where were you, B? No need to tell her B stood for bitch. It doesn't matter, we need to find out what Jake is planning, she replied. B. Don't stress about it. Let your guard down, bitch. We'll figure it out. How's Leah? She paused. Okay. I shook my head and lay down of the ground. She wasn't okay, I knew that, she knew that. Only she thought I didn't know it. I knew what kind of position Leah was in, wanting to help her best friend but mad at her at the same time. Hiding her feelings with that fucking mask that Sam made her wear all the time. I may want the bitch to pay, but I knew what Sam did was cruel. I couldn't believe Leah took it like a champ. Putting that mask on, I had to give her points for that. Have you seen Jake doing anything yet? Do you really think he'll try and overthrow me? She questioned. He had approached me, asking me if I wanted to help overthrow his sister. I hadn't responded yet. No need to give any her of that information. No, I lied smoothly, and I don't know B. Maybe not. But I haven't seen anything suspicious going on. Figures, if you see him acting suspicious you'll tell me, right? Thank God she didn't use her alpha voice. I could lie all I want. Yeah, you know I'll always tell you, B. I answered. Well, B, I got to hit the hay, haven't slept in 2 days. I've been pulling triple shifts to cover all the holes Jake made. The guilt in her face was evident as I walked away. Walking towards my house, I phased. I hopped through the window of my bedroom, grabbing my phone as I landed. I searched through the last calls before pressing the send button. It rung for a minute before he picked up. Hello, Jake answered. Jake, it's me. I'm in, bitches going down. I said. Great, meet me in Seattle. I got some people I want you to meet. He replied before hanging up. She was defiantly going down. 42 hours. 42 hours of non-stop patrolling. The rest of the pack had switched on and off. Me being the only one who worked a whole non-stop shift. Guilt was becoming a constant company with me. Nearly 5 times I thought of Edward, nearly getting caught by the pack. I was grateful they only caught the end of my thoughts. When my sentence ended with vampire, they immediately came to my rescue. It was embarrassing when they had found me almost sleepwalking towards the cliffs. Sam had demand for me to sleep. He looked at me with knowing eyes and determination present. Did he ever feel this guilt? Is that why he was allowing me to sleep? I felt more than guilt, it was worse. I had been neglecting my pack, I hadn't seen Edwards since I started patrolling, and I was falling asleep as I stumbled to my house. The window was open, letting in the cold breeze that I could no longer feel. I could see my light on, someone was sitting there. Waiting, it looked like. I phased in the bushes next to my house. It didn't take long for me to put my clothes on, as I walked slowly towards the house. I climbed through the window, closing it on the way in. Bella, we need to talk, a voice said. I nearly jumped back out the window. There stood Dad, his wheelchair taking up most of the space in my small bedroom. His face was in a mask of anger, his eyes giving me the guilt-inducing stare. Hey Dad, I said. He waited, still looking at me with his glare. Belle, you want to tell me why I had to find out from Leah that you imprinted? I already suspected, but you couldn't tell me face to face. I know it's that Cullen boy. I looked at him, sleep deprivation making it hard for me to focus. Yes Dad, I imprinted, and he interrupted me, throwing his arms up. Now you want to tell me? Bella, why didn't you tell me when it happened, or better yet before you went off with him and I sent Jake to find you? If I had known now what I know now, I wouldn't have sent him to pick you, maybe then he wouldn't hate you. I froze, staring at my father, hiding my tears in a mask much like Leah's. Jake hated me. He was my brother. He couldn't, could he? Leah's words mocked me. Blindness can result in death. Dad, Jake doesn't hate me. I don't know what's wrong, but I'll fix it. I know I'm not at the top of his most favorite list. But he wouldn't turn on me. Dad looked doubtfully at me, then shook his head. I looked away from him in disbelief. No, he wouldn't. Bella, I don't think it's best for you to live in denial. I just shook my head. He seemed to accept that as me not wanting to talk about it. Bella, tell me why you felt this need to keep you imprinting away from me. I'm your father, you can trust me. Why don't you trust me? He asked. Dad, I was afraid that you would hate me. Just like Jacob did. I responded. He saw how Jacob reacted, how could he think I would be able to tell him something like that? Fine, but I'm meeting your imprint. He snapped back. He finally seemed to notice my tired appearance and his eyes softened. Go to sleep, kiddo. We'll talk about this in the morning. He shut off the light and rolled himself out of the room. I crawled into bed and put my covers over my head. When I see that boy, I'm running his foot over with my chair. I heard him say in the hallway. I stared up at the ceiling, dreading tomorrow and planning my escape route for the morning. I set the alarm. Eventually I drifted off to sleep. Mind-numbing, painless sleep. I hopped out the window, grabbing my bag of clothes. It was raining, no surprise being so close to Forks. I checked my watch. 4:30 a.m. I went to the old rusty garage, thankful it was too steep for Billy to roll down without crashing. The garage door was locked, the keys inside near the kitchen table. I wasn't stupid though, one sound from the kitchen and Billy would be up. He had some freaky super hearing. I carried a hairpin with me, using it to break into my own garage. Jake's old bike was inside, still running like she was brand new. I grabbed the keys off the shelf, holding them in my right hand. Dad was going to go crazy when he saw I wasn't here. If Jake really hated me, I knew where he was. I revved the engine, hoping that Jake still kept her in good condition. She turned on, her engine purring and letting out a few coughs simultaneously. I pressed the garage button and out on my helmet, my brown hanging out of it. I had stolen some of Leah's old biker gear a few years ago. 2 sizes too big then, but just right now. Her gloves were the perfect size, leather and smooth on my skin as I revved the engine. The garage was open. I could see Billy at the porch, his wheelchair sitting there as the rain fell. I could feel his sad gaze upon me. He was a great father. But if he was right, I had to try and seal things up with Jake. Find out why he hated me. I hit the gas, the rain falling on my back cold as ice. I waved to Billy as I passed, not bothering to look back, knowing his face would make me turn around. The wind blowing through my helmet, the road slick as I drove. I knew where I was going. Seattle. The one place Jacob could have serious connections, hide easily, and betray the pack at the same time. I maneuvered my car through the rain, past the forest and Forks, and onto the highway. 2 hours passed as I drove. The time feeling meaningless to me, I was numb. My baby brother Jacob hated me. In fact, he probably despised me. Why though? Couldn't he see what he did, how he affected everyone? Welcome to Seattle, the sign greeted me. Traffic was congested, bumper to bumper, but I easily slipped through with my bike. 5th Street came and went, 7th, 15th and 27th soon followed. I went south. My best guess was that Jacob was staying with his friend, Mitchell. His friend from the summer camp 5 years ago. They kept in contact, even when Mitchell turned into a criminal and Dad and I begged him to end their friendship. They were like 2 peas in a pod. He was okay with me. Personally, I saw him as a meaningless person that was a threat to Jake. 37th, the venue came up and I parked the car by the second apartment building. I wasn't stupid. Jake's bike would either be in the back or in the parking garage across the street. The rain was heavier in Seattle, beating on me restlessly as I ran towards the door, into the elevator, and pushed the 9th floor button. The doors closed and opened again before I knew it. 901,903,905,907, jackpot. I knocked on the door, waiting on for someone to answer. Wait a minute, a voice yelled from inside. The door propped open enough for me to see his eyes. They opened the door and were pushed inside by me. He fell down with a thud. His blonde hair sprayed all over his face and his apartment smelling like serious booze. Mitchell, tell me where he is, I warned. He seemed to recognize me, backing up in fear as he twitched away from me. Bella, what brings you to my lovely home? His voice quivered while asking. Unlike most humans, Mitchell knew of the pack's existence and vampires. He had cut off all connections with the pack. His only connection was Jake. Where is he, Mitchell? I asked again. He pulled himself off the floor, dusting himself off. Bella, he looked pointed at me. Although it's lovely to see you again. I would rather not see you at all. Mitchell, give me my information that I want or I swear you'll have a pack of dogs after you. I snapped me teeth at him and he flinched in return, his eyes watching me in fear. He's with some vampires. 56th Street. That's all I know, he said. My phone rang in my bag. Edward's name flashed on the screen. You're lucky I've got to take this. I stomped out the room, letting my facade drop as I stepped into the elevator. Hello, I answered. Alice's voice swept through the phone. Bella, don't go after him, she warned. I'm sorry, Alice, I have to make this right. He's my baby brother. I hung up the phone, walking like a zombie to my bike. I put the key in, throwing my bag in the back. The rain was falling even harder now. It wasn't long before I was on 56th Street. It was the ghetto. Thugs on the sidewalk that were grinning at me like I was someone to be wooed over. I continued on my way looking for a Jacob back. A thug was pressed up against a building. His wife beat-er a yellow color from so much usage. It seemed ridiculous that he was out here without even the slightest jacket on. A cigarette was in his mouth, not even lit, with the cold weather determined to keep it out. Something stood out from him, something no one else would notice. His red eyes. I hopped off my bike, parking it and hopping onto the sidewalk. Hey you, I called out. The vampire bared his teeth at me, showing the venom that coated them. What? He yelled back, an old English accent coming out. He looked around, looking around for anyone that might be listening. I walked over to him, letting my facade fall into place. Where is he? I demanded. He looked at me confused, sniffing the air around me. His sick scent wavered into my nose, making me want to barf. Why had the Cullen stopped smelling like this? Where are you head, young shapeshifter? His voice was mocking. I started at him, internally shocked at him. Looking for someone. Jake, you heard of him? I barked back. His face flashed in recognition, a smirk then placed on his face. Yeah, he's around back. He lit his cigarette, a Bic lighter in his hand. I lit red then blew out. Piece of dirt cigarette. I went around the building, an alleyway was leading to the back. I could see 5 guys standing in the back by the garage. I walked down. The building was 4 stories high with windows scattered all around the area. Why would Jake be here? I neared the end of the alley, dark without sunlight to brighten it up. The backyard was untamed, weeds in the yard and lawn chairs piled up in the corners. I went towards the garage, ready to break into it. To my surprise, it was already open, 2 cars already sitting there, SUVs and a Nissan Altima. I looked around searching for a NY thing that would mean Jake had been here. I searched on the shelves of the garage, looking up and down all 3 of them. I couldn't smell anything. Going around the cars I smelled something. It smelled like Jake, mixed with motorcycle. I followed it to the trunk of the SUVs. Jake's motorcycle was sitting in the trunk, marked up with the scratch Leah had put on it last year when she went berserk. He was here. I walked through the garage, the door into the back door of the apartment building, preparing to drag Jake out. Whether he was willing to or not. I knocked on the door. Wait a minute, a voice said from inside. The door hit the wall with a bang, a man stepping out into the shady light. He had a scar underneath his eye and chin. Glasses rested on his nose, thick and black. The smell of drugs followed him. Who are you here for? He asked. His voice sounded high-pitched and funny. Jacob, I answered confidently. Jacob who? He responded. Black. Acquaintance. Sister. He peeked curiously at me now behind his glasses. Ah well, follow me. He walked back inside. I stared at him in questioning, only to see walking down the hall without me. You coming? He called back. I followed inside. The walls were tarnished with scratch marks and paint. Dirty with God knows what. I walked on, ignoring everything I saw. The man stopped at the end of the hall, a door in front of him. He's in there, he said. He twisted the doorknob and pushed it open, causing a loud creak. He made a gesture for me to walk in. The room was set up as an office, a desk in the middle of room. A chair was turned around and a tapping echoed through the room. The man who led me in here walked beside the chair. Bella, a voice broke from the chair, it's so nice to see you again. The person turned around and I gasped at who I found in the chair. Paul. He sat there, a smirk on his face that could be seen for miles. I shifted my weight subtly so I would be able to get out the door easily. Tut tut, Paul chastened. He waved his hand towards the door, The man walked over calmly, standing guard to the easiest exit of the room. I'm partly offended. Why would you think I couldn't anticipate your thoughts? He shook his head. I've been in the pack with you for years, he stated. He stood up, his arms stretching up. You seem to have forgotten, you may be the Alpha, but I am the Omega. He grinned sickeningly. Paul maneuvered around the desk, tripping on the old rug lying on floor. The guard snickered and Paul shoot him a scowl. Now Bella, take a seat, he gestured to a fold-up chair leaning against the wall. When I didn't move, Paul shrugged his shoulders. I have some explaining to do. Where to begin, where to begin? He scratched his chin in a comical way. I know, let's start with your imprint, shall we? I stared at him in shock. How did he know about Edward? A smirk was on his face as he took in my shocked expression. Yes, I know all about him. Never caught a whiff of my scent around the school? He questioned rhetorically. Billy would be so sad when he finds out you ditched school with a vampire, wouldn't he? His smirk widened. Let's start at the beginning of this beautiful, glorious story. It all started 2 years ago. Do you remember the first time we met? When I looked at you with hate, especially when Leah welcomed you into the pack. I hated you because you were simply a roadblock. You see, I had a plan, even back then, to overthrow Sam. He didn't have alpha blood, so I know it would take almost nothing to overthrow him. Just imagine me, Alpha, Eve. Writhing would be so, he searched for the right word. Perfect. But when you came along and Leah greeted you like some fucking companion, the Ice Queen, can you believe? He shrugged his shoulders. I knew I would need 3 things to make my plan come true. 1, I would need someone with the same motives as me. To get you and your soon-to-be in the pack brother out. Next, I had to get Sam out of the picture and Leah, for obvious reasons. Lastly, I needed something big to make the pack accept me as Alpha. It's all part of a big plan, I'll explain, Bella dear. But first things I had to deal with were the last Alpha and Beta who, undoubtedly, would try to defy me. So simple plan, get rid of them. Right now they should be dead from a little something I slipped in both of their food yesterday. Sam will be so guilty when he finds her dead, her suicide note typed up right next to her. Might as well make his few hours as guilty as possible. Paul was sick. He chuckled in amusement. I eyed the door hoping the man would have wavered. He didn't even look slightly bored, just amused too. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to know who my companion in all of this is? I stared at him with curiosity. Your brother, Jacob Black, wants to kill his big sister. And I thought my family was messed up. He shook his head in exasperation. I stared at him in shock. If Jacob hated me that much, would he kill me? Oh yes, it turned out big brother Jacob was so jealous of his big sister, that when she joined the pack he wanted to take you out. Big time. The problem is your brother only recently figured it all out. Less than a year ago he loved you, Bella. You were his big sister, but now, he'd be willing to bite your head off. He wanted a companion to help get you out of the pack. He shook his head, probably thinking about the similar ways their minds worked. I stood there simply asking why he was doing this. And I'm his companion. Remarkably, I hesitated when Jake first called, thinking it was a trap. You actually changed my mind about this. You and you bitchy ways. Now let's see, I explained my companion, my pack destruction plan. He marked them on his fingers. Who was this man? Why was he like this? Oh yes, no, I remember the whole plan in the big finale. The plan, he hesitated for a moment, before continuing, in fact your brother only knows part of the plan. While soon enough you'll know all of it. Now I'm assuming you saw Mitchell, otherwise you would never be here. Yeah, well, he was a decoy, you see. All part of the big finale, only in a small way. Mitchell is a snack for some friends Jake has. You know, the same kind that your imprint is. Were they really going to feed Mitchell to vampires, I thought. Wait, did he say friends? Well, apparently your brother knows a vampire named Marcus. Who's looking for revenge against a vampire king, who knew? He's planning to use an army to take down the vampire. Something about a mate. Anyway, back on topic. The army will kill the vampire king and those little Cullens you're so fond of. The pack kills the army, and with no vampire king to recover from such a massive hit, and they will be devastated. My original plan turned into this. A fucking ingenious strategy. I was terrified, adrenaline making me go crazy. How to get out of here? The man at the door looked more interested in Paul's story, now more than anything else. One thing I was sure of: Paul was senile. Extremely senile. Paul didn't seem to notice as he continued. Of course we'll keep 2 vampires from the army to spread the word about the pack being the new bosses. Everyone will try to defy us, we're not their kind, and how can we control them? It's as easy as pie, being stupid bloodsuckers. Hate oozed out of his eyes as he said this. They won't come in groups. We could take out the Cullens, and from what Marcus said, they're the biggest coven out there. Next to the royal group. We'll take them down, easy as fucking pie. At the end of these 2 weeks I will be king. He laughed manically at the edge of his desk, tears formed in his eyes. He banged his hand on the desk. Once, twice, 3 times. Why was he telling me this? Yes, I know. You're wondering why I'm telling you this. Well, Bella, it is simple. You're not going to tell anyone any of this because you're not leaving. He heaved himself off the desk and bent towards the door. He knocked twice. The floorboards opening up. I gaped in amazement. I peeked down inside. It looked to be as big as a walk-in closet. The walls were painted white from what I could see. Josh, grab her arms. The man guarding the door stepped forward and grabbed my arms, locking them into place. I started to struggle. Josh pushed me forward. I struggled more. He pushed. Struggle. Push. Until I was directly in front of the hole. Paul smirked when I tried a last-ditch effort, hoping to God that Josh was weak in some place. He wasn't. Time for you to go in the hole by Bella. Josh pushed me in and I fell. I landed on my butt, giving Paul enough time to say one last thing before closing the hatch off. Good luck in there, bitchy bee, he said. It wasn't long before she had woken up. Even less time did it take for me to determine that she wanted to talk to Leah. Alone. I spent 2 days hunting. It wasn't a surprise that after 2 days my phone rang. I was surprised, after all, that it took her that long to call. Edward. Her panicked voice came through the phone. Hurry. I keep getting flashes. It's bad, real bad. I don't know. Her voice was cut off and the phone dropped. Edward, Jasper said in alarm. Come home, now. Alice, she's in a vision now. Just come home. I could hear his hand as it went over the receiver. Alice, calm down. Edward, get your ass at this house pronto. Rosalie's muffled voice said with no conviction. I'm coming now. I ended the call. I ran to the house, jumping over the river and Esme's garden. The door to the house was open, its hinges barely hanging to the door casing. The living room was cluttered with sketches, some on the floor, and many on the wall. Strings connected each one and numbers were on the corners of each page. Alice, I said hesitantly. A blur came towards me. Her black hair barely recognizable as she barreled me down. Edward, you're okay. She shook her head dismally. So many visions, so many. Edward, Arrow is coming. Marcus knows. 3 days, maybe 2. She stood up, grabbing a sheet of paper off the floor and taping it onto the wall. Jasper, explain. I feel like another one's coming. She attached a string to the paper and grabbed her sketchbook before heading to the dining room. Jasper walked down the stairs slowly, the rest of the family on his trail. He walked over to the wall, motioning for me to follow him. He stopped at the center of the chaos, pointing to a sketch. I looked closer and noticed a man that seemed to be crawling towards people. They seemed to be ghosts, their eyes a charcoal black, skin pale with no flush of life. It took me a moment to realize that they were us. The number 1 stood out in the corner, it was also the where the strings started. Alice says the man's Jacob. Do you see the dark patches there? He pointed them out. She says he's bleeding, a newborn injected venom in his system. He's coming here in an hour or less. This one, he pointed to the next sketch. Jacob's dead. This, another sketch. As the army Marcus is building, Jacob got bit by one of his newborns. Apparently he is, or was, working with them. The sketches are almost a series of events, we're not sure when they're happening but they are. Edward, Esme's voice shook. It's terrible. What can we do about it? I asked while looking at the rest of the pictures. Number 4 had a picture of a neighborhood. People standing across the yard and what looked like gang members standing in alleyways. Number 7 held a small closet that looked to be concealed in a floor. A small woman stood in the center, she looked alarmed but still. Her face was covered by the shadows, she looked hauntingly beautiful though. We don't know, it's like a never-ending puzzle. Alice gets visions, she draws them. And if it doesn't change we put it on the wall. She can't tell where they begin or where they end. Jasper said frustratingly. With no information, we have no way to stop it. He froze as we heard Alice's footsteps coming from the dining room. Carlisle, she said clearly, get your medical bag. Jacob's outside. Rosalie, leave, now. She glared at Rosalie when she tried to protest. You'll do irreversible damage, you are not staying. Esme, she addressed my mother. Would you mind accompanying Rosalie? Not at all, Alice, Esme replied gently. She and Rosalie left out the back door, sparing a worried glance at their mates. One of which was back with his medical bag. Emmett, get him from outside, he won't last long trying to get past the river. Emmett sped out, clearly worried with the way Alice was talking. Alice went back into the dining room. I could hear the scraping of the table as she drug it towards us. Emmett was back in a flash, and it was almost comical the way Jacob clung to Emmett. Almost. He put Jacob on the table and I immediately applied pressure to the giant gash that was on his stomach. Scratches were on his face, almost as if he had been attached by a demented cat. Carlisle immediately started working on his stomach wound. But Jacob held up his hand, struggling to sit up and gasping when he couldn't. I went by his side, holding him up so he could look Carlisle in the eye. He may be Marcus's accomplice, but he was still Bella's brother. He coughed, blood and congestion spewing from his mouth. Alice came to his side, and to the utter surprise of everyone, she raised her hand and slapped Jacob. You idiot, imbecile egoísta idiota inmaduro estúpido, she muttered. Jacob let out a fake chuckle before speaking. You know I can understand everything you're saying. I took Spanish as a second language. She raised her hand to strike again but was stopped by Jasper. Let him say what he came here for, he reasoned. Thanks, man, Jacob answered. Jasper glared at him. Anyway, he coughed again. I just came to tell you that Marcus is coming soon. The pack's not listening. Cough to me, they don't even believe that. More blood came from his mouth as he coughed again. Paul's trying to sabotage them. Until he made a newborn attack me and fed my friend to bloodsuckers, I wouldn't believe it either. Maybe if I wasn't focused on my plan, I would have caught Paul's plan. He seemed to be smirking but paused midway. My plan was to just overthrow my sister. I mean, I deserved to be alpha, I worked from the bottom up. I was basically the omega. Bella, he shook his head sadly. Carlisle sprayed disinfectant on his stomach and wrapped it in gauze. Blood seeped through immediately. Bella, he switched gears suddenly, she's such a good sister. You take care of her, man, okay? He said to me. I nodded and applied more pressure when blood spurted out of his gash. I was jealous, I guess you could say. I did some things I'm not proud of. I shouldn't have gone to Paul. He's a sick son of a gun. Paul hooked me up with Marcus. In turn for Marcus's help we delivered some people to him. Marcus changed them, he now has an army, a bloodsucker army. Maybe if I could, I would go back in time. But as they say, what's done is done. His heart seemed to slow down. The cuts around his face had somewhat healed now. Tell my sister I love her and I'm sorry. Tell her I died peacefully. He tried to raise his body up again and let out a groan. I realized that it was a groan of pain, and he was trying to curl into a ball to stop the agony that came with his slash. I'm not going to make it through the night. Don't you dare tell Bella I'm here. He glared at everyone. He turned his glare to me. This is the last gift to my sister. You buddy. He tried to point at Emmett. Could you get my bag? Emmett went outside and came back with his bag. Jacob sifted through it. He came out with 2 cases. Edward, this one's yours. He tossed me a small jewelry case. I opened it to find an engagement ring. She always wanted someone to propose to her at the top of a cliff. This one, he patted the other case, is my mother's necklace. Give it to her for her wedding day. Something old and borrowed. His heart slowed and his eyes closed. He had passed out. I sat there for the rest of the night, wondering if I should call Bella. Lyle had already hooked Jacob to an IV and heart monitor. He was stable enough for her to say her finale goodbye, though his heart rate was dropping by the hour. The sun was coming up when I decided. Hello, someone answered the phone. Is Bella there? I asked. No, why? I could hear the anger in his voice. Her brother is here. He's not in good condition. I could hear rustling on the other end before a new voice came on. We're coming soon. They hung up. Alice, I asked hesitantly. Who's coming? Edward, I can't answer that right now. She whisked across the room, replacing one sketch with another on the wall. I don't know, Jasper. She debated with him, maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. I'm getting visions about a truck, a bike, a white room with a girl, and an army. It's an outline though. I can't tell who the girl is, when the army's coming, or even who's coming to see Jacob. She placed her hand on the wall. Taping a sketch and following the rope, she pointed to a drawing with a river. I can see an attack coming, she continued. Arrow falling from the throne, but it feels like I'm missing something. Emmett interrupted her. Alice, why couldn't Rosalie be here? He asked, concerned for his mate. Alice's eyes hardened as her head turned towards him. Rosalie would have insulted Jacob. She would have killed him, at least from what I saw. Some things he said would have got to her. One thing would lead to another, and in my vision, she hesitated for a second. Rosalie was applying pressure to Jacob's injury. She wouldn't notice it, but she would add more pressure and more. Until her hand came through his stomach. It's important that whoever is coming to see Jacob sees him alive, she emphasized. He's going to wake up one more time before he dies. That's why I called Edward. He wouldn't kill him. Bella means too much to him. She went back to the drawings, carefully organizing them, try to make sense of them. Emmett was silent. A knock came at the door. Immediately the people came in. 2 tan-colored men walked into the dining room, where we had moved Jacob. One of them was in a wheelchair, the other pushed him along. Dr. Fang, the younger one addressed Carlyle. Carlyle ignored the jab and talked to the man in the wheelchair. Billy, I wished we would see each other again under better circumstances. Billy rolled over to Jacob, putting his hand to his forehead. I could hear Jacob's heart rate pick up and his eyes opened slightly. Can I have a moment alone with him, Carlyle? Billy asked. Carlyle nodded and we left out of the room. We could all hear the conversation but ignored it as best as we could. Why, Jacob? The alpha position isn't worth gambling your life. What would Sarah do? I could hear Jacob's heart rate speed up even more. Dad, it isn't your fault. Mom would be mad too, just as you are. I could smell the salt that came from Billy's newly formed tears. Why, Jake? A new voice asked. I was jealous, he said simply. It doesn't matter now. I'm joining Mom soon. Tell Rebecca and Rachel I'll miss them. His heart, again, slowed. Maybe Mom will have my favorite chocolate chip cookies that she used to bake. He let out a laugh that extinguished before it could grow. Then I heard it, his last heartbeat, and Billy's tears as they hit the floor. Edward, Alice called my attention. I know who the girl in the picture is. She showed me sketch number 7. It's Bella. My world broke apart. Paul was aware of what extremely cold temperatures could do to a wolf's body. Our bodies could handle below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. What we couldn't handle was below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, literally leaving me shivering with nothing but Leah's leader, from when she used to smoke, to keep me company. I searched the pockets again, only to come up with a hole that contained Leah's backup matches. I rolled my eyes. Didn't she know this stuff could kill her? I stretched up, the ceiling barely tall enough for my head. I pressed my ear against the wall, hoping for the slightest sound. The only thing I heard was the rumbling of 6 air conditioners. An idea struck me. I knew the fire wouldn't last long, but it was worth the try. My shaking hands grabbed for the leather coat. Tearing the sleeves off, I rolled them in a ball and grabbed the lighter. I held it to one of the sleeves. It caught on fire easily but then diminished. I tried the lighter again but it wouldn't light. I tried 2 more times before I threw it on leather jacket. I crushed it with my foot and the flammable liquid soaked into the leather. I grabbed the matches, praying to God that these worked. 3 matches were left, including the one I was holding. As soon as I struck, a light glowed from match. I cupped it in my hand, holding it close to the tiny puddle that had been left at the top. The puddle went alight and I held myself close to it, praying to God that someone would find me. I could only last about 16 hours in here with a small fire to keep me company. My arm shivered and I scooted closer. God, I hoped someone found me. Where, Alice? I demanded. She shook her head and turned around. She called over her back, Edward, you know better than I that I can't see the wolves that well. I was lucky enough to see Jacob's and Bella's hair to know who they were. You really want to take a chance of believing that my vision will be correct? I fisted my fingers through my hair, slightly pulling on the strands. Alice, I'll take my chances. Her mind went blank before 1,000 images flooded through her head. Stop, stop, I yelled. The images froze. One standing out 56th or 66th, it was too blurry to tell. Alice, I know what you are going to say, and yes, I can see some number, but for all I could know it can be 166th or 155th or 198th. It could be anywhere, she exclaimed. Alice, we have to try. My grip tightened. Her mind blanked again, flashing back to the street, only it turned to a building, 5627 56th and Amityville Avenue. We have an address, let's go. I grabbed my keys and headed towards the door. Alice hopped ahead, blocking me. Edward, think about what I just told you, she urged. I went over our conversation until it hit me. Yes, why is it clear now? She asked to confirm. I don't care, Alice, I will get to her. She grabbed my arm, holding me back. You may not want to know what's at the end of this hallway, Edward. She warned. What? I snapped. What's at the end? Her eyes hardened and slowly she turned away, facing the wall. I warn and warn. Shit, Edward, you think we don't care about how this will hurt you if Bella is lost? Or how about how she feels? At this very moment we have the chance to run, but are we? No, we are still here. She fiddled with the pencil, flipping it back and forth. It wasn't childish or a show of weakness. I could hear the wood splintering on the pencil, the graphite turning to dust. Finally, the pencil snapped from her anger. Alice, her far-off gaze stopped me in my tracks. Bella lay cold on the floor, shivering. Another vision hit Alice. Bella was dead from the cold, burning from a fire. I could hear the slam of my car door. Alice shoving the key in and starting the engine. But I wasn't there. The vision played over and over again. I felt a sting on my face, shocking me out of the replay. Idiot, Rosalie shrieked. Get your ass out there. I didn't look back at her, I did as she suggested, and like Alice was in the car in milliseconds. Alice hit the gas, and the engine stalled before it breathed with life. She sped down the road. Quickly we made it to the highway. The vision had stopped. Did that mean we were too late, that Bella was dead? My heart burned, registering the fact that it was a possibility. What of the upcoming battle? God knows how unable I will be if Bella is dead. But then, my fury and sadness will be directed towards the enemy. But I could see it now. As soon as the battle had been fought, the fire started to burn the rest of the bodies. I would jump in. Esme would be heartbroken, but there would be nothing to live for. I stopped thinking of the sadness it would cause my family, my coven. I focused at the task at hand, making sure that Bella was alive. If she was not, then I would fight with my coven. But death have mercy on the fool who dare be crazy enough to cross my path on the battlefield. The door slamming brought me out of my thoughts. I checked the clock. No more than 30 minutes had passed and we were here. I quickly made my way out of the car, running towards the back alley. The back door was wedged open by a brick. A note taped to the side door stood like a red flag. Dear whoever finds this note. You motherfucker, I hope you find her body after the fire starts. If this is the cops, we filled the sprinkler system with butane gas. One sign of any fire, the bitch is bound to get cold, it will go off. If it is some magical fucking wimpy Cullen, I hope her body is charred beyond recognition. Sincerely, who gives a fucking flying crap about you? Alice, being swift behind me, was gasping at the note. I threw it on the ground, rushing inside. I could smell the gas burning. The hallway was dusky, but I paid it no mind. There was a door at the end of the hallway. I was grasping at the handle, breaking the lock instantly. There was nothing in here, and then I remembered number 7. I started hitting the floor with my shoes looking for a hollow point. It took me 7 tries, Alice eventually coming to help me, till we found it. Backquote. I grabbed the steel office chair and banged at the floor. I stopped immediately once I realized that that steel could spark, causing another fire if the sprinkler system was rigged with gas. The smell was getting more powerful and filled my nose like rotting food. We continued to stomp on the floor, finally making a puncture after 20 minutes. I crushed the 3 layers of steel easily once my arm was around them. The hole was big enough to fit only one person. I looked inside and there lay my Bella, unconscious. A flame started in the center of the floor, growing bigger. I held open the little hole as Edward jumped inside. The fire was steadily growing, butane gas was evident in the air. Edward bent down and gently cradled the unconscious Bella. He hoisted her up to my awaiting arms. Gracefully, I stood. At the same time, a vision knocked the breath out of me. "Rose, call, please. We have to know if they're all right," Emmett begged. Rosalie scoffed in disbelief. She knew they were being monitored. As did her husband. "We can't, the Volturi are watching. Wait till 3. Rose kissed his forehead and walked. Emmett glanced at his clock. 1 hour left. Suddenly, Rose's shriek echoed throughout the house. Emmett didn't stop to think and jumped at the sound. Rose was at the door. Her head lay on the ground, her body outside the house. I had let go of Bella and hadn't even noticed. Her body was much like it had been in the hole, lifeless, hot, and unmoving. I grabbed for Edward, who was still in the hole. He gave me a questioning look before I was pulled into another vision. "Edward, the battle is coming sooner than we thought," Carlyle said. Edward was sitting with Bella, who was hooked up to an IV, holding her hand. "We can't do it alone, Edward." Carlyle's eyes swept over Rosalie. She may not survive, and he could see the effect it was taking on Emmett. He was much like Edward now. Sitting, brooding, but anyone could identify the fire in his eyes. Both men sighed before they echoed a yes. They knew. "I can stay," Esme suggested. Her arm had already endured bites from the earlier onslaught from Felix, who had decapitated Rosalie. In fact, Esme had almost lost her leg, but she was still capable of defending the girls. Alice, Edward looked worried. But I knew he had not seen the vision. His eyes betrayed too much worry for Bella and I. Not the family at the moment. I shook my head, and grabbed Bella off the floor. She coughed out the fumes, desperate to leave her system. We rushed to the car. I went into the back seat, Edward hoping into the driver's seat. I held Bella, reaching for my phone at the same time. I checked the time, 2:30 p.m. We were too late. Quickly I looked ahead for any changes in the future. Nothing, in fact only one thing had changed. Rosalie was going to die. I wept for my sisters, I wept for Jazz, for the wolves. For Emmett on the loss of his mate, even the family. I sobbed and sobbed, Edward having no clue why I was. I didn't stare at him, only holding Bella close. Hoping she would survive, maybe she would, maybe she would. Alice was dry sobbing, her mind was whispering a lullaby. One I knew she hated, "You Are My Sunshine." Alice and I always hated the song because of our own past lives. The song was death and so morbid. She was holding Bella so tightly that I was afraid she would break her, even if Bella was a wolf. "You make me happy." I stared at Alice, her arms increasing their hold. "I sue. LD hear Bella's less than fragile bones creak in protest but immediately mend. When skies are gray." My phone started vibrating, humming softly. "You'll never know, dear." "Hello," I answered. I almost felt like I was broken as I tried to wipe the non-existent tears away. "How much I love you. Edward, are you headed home? Is Bella okay?" Esme's motherly tone wafted through. "Please don't take my sunshine away." Alice's mental voice hung through the last word, her hold finally loosening around Bella. "Yes, and Bella is." Her soot-stricken face and her small labored breaths were not something I could easily explain without moving into the backseat with her. "Not in the best condition," I continued, the sadness in my voice easily recognizable. Esme's matched my own, her motherly affection showing. "Mom, I'm almost home," and Alice's gasp was noticeable but merely a background. The smell of one of our own burning flesh tainted the air. Emmett stared longingly at the fire, and his own hand had burn marks. They were slowly healing, stitching and mending the flesh. Emmett ran inside, his thoughts replaying a scene over and over. He cradled her to his chest. Presumably Rose's head was tucked there. His dry heaving made it impossible to see until her neck fell. "Without a head. Carlyle," he sobbed. "Please help. It pained me to think my brother and I were on the same boat, our mates close to death." Why? He was now on the forest floor. Rose was inside with Carlyle and Emmett was in shock. I could see when Emmett noticed a foreign shadow and his instincts to protect his mate went in. Emmett launched at the shadow and was quick to kill it. Felix was decapitated and was going to be thrown in a fire. Emmett had been sitting and staring at the fire for 20 minutes. Alice and I, carrying Bella, rushed inside and we immediately saw Carlyle finishing stitching Esme's bites. In the basement, He showed me an image of the room that looked like 2 actual hospital beds. He led us down, taking Bella from my useless hands before getting to work. Everything was prepared. He put a CPB machine on Bella as Rosalie was on one as well, her head now stitched back to her body. Her spine was melded together using putty mold and was thinly rimmed with cement. All to heal her. Carlisle put a chair next to Emmett's, next to Bella. I helped him put the IV bag in her. I swept the hair from her face and held my hands against her. Her skin was too hot, even for being the werewolf that I loved. I kissed her forehead, throwing a thin sheet over her so she wouldn't get too hot. I put her IR in a ponytail like Rosalie's as Carlisle put her onto a heart monitor. Then washed the heavy soot from her face, throwing the paper towel away in the bin. Esme limped towards us, putting a hand on both of our shoulders. "Where's Jasper?" I voiced my mental question. "Sorting out the wolves, battle ranks and such." Both responded. "Edward, the battle is coming sooner than we thought." Carlisle continued. "We can't do it alone, Edward." His eyes swept over Rosalie, then Bella. Emmett and I looked at our parents in pain. We both said we understood, yet we were so reluctant to move. "I can stay," Mom suggested. I mouthed thank you and curled my fingers around Bella's before bringing her hand up to my lips to kiss. I hoped she would be fine, but I stood silently kissing Rose and Esme on the forehead. Emmett was going through the same process I had just done. We were sure of 2 things only. If our loves didn't make it, we would only last to save the rest of the family. Then end our own lives. Everyone else who was not on our side, was dead. So that's for today. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe our channel for more such videos.